Welcome back to Daybreak. 2016, Christmas messages today fly across the internet and our cell phones instantly.
Well, back in the day, especially in Alaska's remote villages, sending those same messages required a military network of telephone and telegraph stations. In this week's Story Time with Aunt Phil, author Laurel Downing Bill tells us about the great efforts folks had to go through to communicate across Alaska's vast landscape. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what was the extent of our communications infrastructure like, say, back in the mid-1900s?
Well, you had just a few cables that reached a few Alaska towns back then. So messages that were sent through the Alaska Communication System stations were then transmitted through radiophones. Things like weather, and it became a lifeline to many of our Alaska communities where weather was shared. Also helped, of course, with the aviators plan their future trips as to see what was going on with the weather conditions.
What was the typical setup of a radiophone like?
Well, you had lots of antennas sticking high in the air all across Bush, Alaska. And then also you had battery-operated radios in several of the homes. And weather wasn't the only thing that was transmitted. They also sent messages regarding health and other things. So there was a schedule, and according to an article that was in the Alaska Call in 1959, it said every rural Alaska knew what this schedule was.
So weather, health, as you mentioned, these phones obviously, I'm sure, did a lot, or as much as they could, to help save some Alaskan lives.
Yeah, they actually were like a lifeline for a lot of rural Alaska because, well, they didn't have very many doctors out in the bush at those times. In fact, you had 2 doctors and 1 dentist, both in Dillingham and in Bethel, to serve 1,000 miles from Nome all the way down to Adak on the Aleutian chain. So the Alaska Native Services Hospital had a regular schedule where the doctor would get online. So they'd announce the doctor is ready to receive traffic, and then the doctor would sit down and start contacting the various villages and talking to old patients to see how they're doing, new patients, trying to diagnose things over the radio. And then he would sign off and wait until the next day and do the whole thing over again.
That's amazing. And we mentioned it before, but this system was also important for those holiday messages.
The radiophones weren't just used for the weather and health. That's absolutely true. They would send out messages to their loved ones and their friends, wishing everyone a Merry Christmas and a very happy holiday season.
And luckily, all these years later, thanks to today's technology, we can send those holiday wishes via text message, email, or maybe even over the air on television. Laurel?
That's right. We'd like to wish everyone out there a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.